Jon Jones has asked for his release. Now, before anybody gets all excited about this is 1 week after he declared he would never go to the heavyweight division, 6 days after he said he would go to the heavyweight division as for a catchweight, and 5 days after he said he would take on Francis Ngannou, the biggest heavyweight that there was, 4 days since he said he would walk away from the championship for 1 to 2 years, 3 days since he's called out Jan Blachowicz, and 2 days that he has remained relatively silent. So to take Jon at his word would mean that you're a doofus, but he is showing you some emotion. Doesn't mean Jon's being dishonest, it just means he's a guy that changes his mind a lot. A lot of us can probably relate to that, can't we? What Jon has elected to do is come out after Dana directly. And Dana was asked about the negotiations for Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou. A fight that they not only said they wanted to do, a fight that they publicly agreed to. So now you come into Dana, and Dana's looking left and right and going, hey guys, this fight sounds a little bit fun. We've been interested in Jon sliding up to heavyweight for a little bit of time here. We're looking for something to do with Francis. Look, we can do this if you guys want to do this honorably, which means you both have a contract. Francis, don't you even try. If you're going to take on a guy that you outweigh by 60 pounds, you don't even try to make this a big deal. Jon, you're taking on a bigger guy. Be reasonable. What are you talking about here? I mean, the whole thing was done above board. The two fighters thought they were going to pull a caper on everybody in a time when a live gate has greatly disappeared. So you got a couple of dum-dums, but I mean, you miss every shot you don't take. Okay, fine. They took a shot. They got swatted away. No big deal. Dana does an interview with Brett Okamoto, just to give you guys a timeline. Brett asks Dana about this. And Dana said, yeah, kind of a fun fight. Been interested at Jon at heavyweight for a while now, but it got stopped before it ever got started as far as the negotiations. He just wanted too much money. He asked, and this is a quote, he could not have picked a worse time to ask for that amount of money, end quote. Okay. So Jon fired back. And Jon's firing back not only was way out of line, but it was also one of these things of what are we fighting about? There's nothing to fight about. You could have asked for $1 more. If it's the guy that's writing the check decides that's absurd, then it's absurd. The guy you're asking to write a check gets to decide if that dollar amount is fair or not. There is no other judge. Well, that word of absurd really upset Jon. Said I didn't ask for anything absurd. That's a lie. And I have an obligation to not let you lie to the fans. Jon Jones, as a man of integrity, has an obligation to the fans. Okay, great. I mean, he was in handcuffs 3 weeks ago. He didn't have an obligation to anybody. He has an obligation to the fans to set the record straight that it was not an absurd ask. Well, the problem with that, the person writing the check is the one that gets to decide if it's absurd or not. So under poetic license, of course Dana's right. But Jon had to set this straight. So, you could have let this go. Who cares? They have differing opinions. And the decision maker decided. Well, no. Decision maker really didn't like being called a liar. I mean, there's a lot of things you can say about a guy. You call a guy a liar, he's got to defend himself. And so Dana did it. He came out and said, look, what do you want to do? Take lie detector tests? You sent text messages. I have this in writing. I'm not going to release them. That's not what I'm doing. But there's also no room for lack of clarity here. It's in writing, regardless of what was said on the phone call, which nobody can prove or disprove, and maybe a game of telephone happened, and maybe something's lost in translation. Text messages are still here. Jon then declares, release the text messages. What? Jon, if you're the one that sent them, you release them. You've got them. You release them. So you can start to see where the wheels are falling off the bus, and now they're fighting about very ridiculous things. I mean, in all fairness. But Jon goes further. He calls his boss by name a effing liar. He calls BS, but he says the whole 2 syllables, all right? I'm the one shortening it here for the family version. He then 3 messages later declares that the NFL treats their athletes way better, and he has evidence, which is his brother's. Now, of course, he never breaks down what he makes on a night versus what they make on a night. because he would be making more, a lot more. The fact that he only does 2 matches a year versus their 16 games plus postseason never factored in because he can't do math. But at any rate, he then tells you, after calling his boss an effing liar and asking for a release, that if you don't see it his way, and this is a broad statement to the masses, you don't know business. Getting business sense from Jon Jones, a guy who has never signed the front of a paycheck in his life, would make you a doofus. Oh, and by the way, the same guy who thought it was good business to come in with an idea that got swatted down, come back with another idea that got swatted down, and then publicly rebuke his boss and ask for a release for the reason that he's sure, and I quote, some other promoter out there would be happy to pick me up. Well, you're probably right, Jon. I'm a promoter out there. Just by example, I would pick you up. But now that I know what you're worth, and I know you can't go back and get it, I'm sure as hell not bidding against myself, which, Jon, is how business works.